Zakir Naik does not know what he's talking about. Oh my God, now Zakir Naik is applying Islamic yardstick, Islamic standard to Hinduism. He should know that Hinduism is not Islam. It is an Islamic standard, it is an Islamic belief that the scripture is revealed to one man. In Hinduism it is not so. We have no prophets. Zakir Naik does not tell us what he thinks how old the Vedas are. He is throwing the responsibility on others. Is he serious? Or is he just playing a tactic to confuse the gullible Hindu in the hope that he will become a Muslim, he or she will become a Muslim? Get rid of this idea that Vedas have to be followed. The Upanishads are not next in authority. The Upanishads are the book. Now look at the Quran, for example. Again, Zakir Naik is wrong. Mahabharata. He is saying Mahabharata is a scripture. Manu Smriti is not a scripture. Any damn literature produced in ancient India is not a scripture. Can I take the story of Layla and Majnu, the love story of Layla and Majnu, which transpired in Islamic Arabia? Can I take it as a scripture? Zakir Naik does not know what he's talking about. Hello. In this video, I shall continue with my coverage of the proceedings at the famous dialogue between Zakir Naik, the well-known Islamic preacher and inter-religious scholar, and Sri Sri Ravishankar, the founder of the Art of Living Foundation. In this video, I will cover Zakir Naik's comments on the Hindu scriptures. Now, to begin with, let me say that this was a dialogue between two well-informed individuals and reasonably informed audience. A dialogue to me means an interaction between minds, exchange of views, not statement of well-known facts. Unfortunately, Zakir Naik spent a few precious minutes in his coverage of Hindu scriptures classifying the different scriptures, the different types of scriptures, what each means, which I think was not called for because it was a dialogue, not a tutorial. So I will overlook the tutorial part of Zakir Naik's presentation and come directly on his material comments on the Hindu scriptures. So let us hear his first material comment. I will display the text of his wording and back it up with a voiceover. The voice will not be Zakir Naik's. It will be my voice. Please bear.
There is a difference of opinion regarding how old are these Vedas. According to Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the founder of Arya Samaj, he says the Vedas are 1310 million years old. But the majority of the Hindu scholars, they say the Vedas are approximately 4000 years old.
Zakir Naik does not tell us what he thinks how old the Vedas are. He is throwing the responsibility on others. But knowing where he comes from, where Zakir Naik comes from, knowing his background, we can assume that he has actually pointed out, look, there is no consistency in how old the Vedas are. But there is. Let me answer. Vedas have come from the word vid, which means knowledge. knowledge or wit is one of the features of God. Like this nose of mine is a feature of my physical being. This nose of mine is a feature of my body. How old is my nose? My nose is as old as my body is. Right? Okay. Similarly, since knowledge, since wit is a feature of God, then the Vids or the Vedas are as old as God himself. Now it is for Zakir Naik to tell us how old is God. That many years old is the Veda or are the Vedas. Further, so if Dayanand Saraswati said that the Vedas came into existence 1300 million years ago, he probably meant, to my understanding, that the Vedas were revealed 1300 million years ago. So if the Vedas were revealed 1300 million years ago, it could not have been revealed to human beings because human beings most probably didn't exist at that time. It was revealed to the heavenly beings. And where? On earth or in heavens? At that time, according to belief, both Islamic and Hindu, there was no difference between heaven and earth. They were together. They later divorced in quotes. So when there was no difference between the heavens and the earth, it doesn't really matter whether the Vedas came into existence or were revealed first in the heavens or on earth, because they were same. Now we come to the 4,000 year estimate. Actually my information is 5,000 years, but Zakir Naik has obviously preferred to pick or to cherry pick the timeline which makes the Vedas look as recent as possible. So let us settle with 4,000 years. So what about the Vedas that happened these few thousand years ago? These few thousand years ago, which Zakir Naik prefers to say 4,000, fine. So 4,000 years ago, the Vedas were written down by human. There is a difference between revelation and writing down. So 1300 million years ago, the Vedas were revealed to the heavenly creatures when there was no separation between heavens and the earth, whereas the Vedas were written on earth by humans 4,000 years ago. I hope that answers the discrepancy. Also note, the Vedas are the most ancient surviving texts or knowledge material. They are very, very ancient, and we do expect some question marks on something as ancient as the Vedas. We are talking about phase of history about which there is no written record. So, some cloud on this is inevitable. Now look at the Quran, for example. The Quran was revealed a little over 1400 years ago. 1400 odd years is a very recent timeline. And even then, the Quran, which is a very recent book, does not have a particular date of revelation. Muslim theory or Islamic theory holds that the Quran was first revealed during a certain Ramadan month. Okay, a month. But what date of the month? It is believed to have happened on a night called Laylat ul Qadr or the night of Al Qadr. But what was the date of that night? By any calendar, lunar calendar, solar calendar, Hindu calendar, Islamic calendar, Chinese calendar, Mayan calendar, any calendar, there is no date of that night. Some say towards the end of that Ramadan, some say in the last week, whatever, but there is no date on which the first revelation of the Quran was made to Prophet Muhammad. And if there is no clarity over the origin or over when the first revelation of the Quran was made, which cannot be more than 1400 odd years, if there is no clarity on that, on such a recent document, how can Zakir Naik expect clarity on the origin of the Vedas, which, as per Zakir Naik's own research, is anything between a mere 4000 odd years and a mind-boggling 1300 million years old? Is he serious? Or is he just playing a tactic to confuse the gullible Hindu in the hope that he will become a Muslim, he or she will become a Muslim? Your guess is as good as mine. Let's see what the great Islamic scholar Zakir Naik says next.
There is difference of opinion regarding where did the Vedas come into existence the first time.
Well, now he is asking where the Vedas came into existence. Since in Hinduism and also in the Abrahamic faith, as I argued in one of my previous videos, each of us has something of God in us. So where did the Vedas come to existence for the first time is the heart of the human being, the heart of the beginning of the human race, because God lives inside us. And as I said, the knowledge or the Vedas or the Ved is a feature of God, it is as old as God. Therefore, when human being was first born in a civilized form, then since God was in him and God is still in all forms of life, then the first time the Vedas came into existence in human civilization was when human civilization was born. And when human civilization was born, let Zakir Naik say that. So if the query is, which geographical location were the Vedas revealed? They were revealed all over India, and the writing of the Vedas started on the banks of the river Saraswati, which is now covered with sediment, which is a lost river now. But the Vedas, the Rig Veda itself says that Saraswati river is located between the Sutlej river on the west and the Yamuna river on the east. So where did the river Saraswati disappear? Ask any geologist and he will confirm that rivers across long periods of time change their course or are covered with new sedimentation and vanish. The Arabian Gulf deserts today were once upon a time fertile lands. They were watered by rivers. Even today, if you go to some parts of the Arabian Gulf deserts, especially the one that I have seen in the United Arab Emirates, you find these wadis. What are wadis? Wadis are narrow streams of water you see suddenly in the middle of the desert. They rise from underground, run for some distance, and again enter the desert and get lost. Again, after a long distance, you find it emerging. These are called wadis. These are the remnants of the rivers that once flowed through the Arabian Gulf deserts. In fact, I do remember in the 1990s, when I was living in the United Arab Emirates, Sheikh Zayed, the late Sheikh Zayed, the then ruler of the UAE, had allocated millions of dollars to investigate what happened to those rivers which were once flowing through that part of the world which we now call Arabian deserts. So the phenomena of rivers disappearing over a long period of time is not something unique. The Saraswati river is one of those rivers which have been covered with fresh sediment. But paleo-channel photography done by the Indian Space Research Organization ISRO a few years ago has confirmed that there is a channel flowing underground between the Sutlej and the Yamuna rivers, and on the banks of that river the writing of the Rig Veda started. Let's see what Zakir Naik has to say next.
There is also difference of opinion regarding Who was the rishi to whom the Veda was given the first time?
Oh my God, now Zakir Naik is applying Islamic yardstick, Islamic standard to Hinduism. He should know that Hinduism is not Islam. It is an Islamic standard, it is an Islamic belief that the scripture is revealed to one man. In Hinduism it is not so. We have no prophets. In Hinduism, God is residing in everybody. So, there is no such thing as first rishi who received the Vedic knowledge. Many rishis in different parts of India, east, west, north, south, central, across a long span of time, received the Vedas. The Vedas are actually resident in every human being, but everybody is not conscious enough to realize it. Like in a classroom, the teacher is same, the textbook is same, but all children don't have the equal cognitive power. So some understand, say, math very easily, some understand math with some difficulty, some just don't understand. Similarly, the Vedas are in each human being, but knowledge of it, the grasping of it was limited to some very few spiritually advanced human beings. And that happened across thousands of years before they were written down by Maharshi Vyas. So, there was no one rishi who received knowledge of the Vedas for the first time. That is an Islamic standard. But Indian or Hindu standard is not Islamic standard. It's different. Let's see what Zakir Naik has to say next.
In spite of these differences regarding the age of the Veda, the part in which it came first, to whom it was given, in spite of these differences, yet the Vedas are considered to be the most authentic of all the sacred scriptures of Hinduism, the most sacred among all the scriptures of Hinduism.
In spite of those differences, nice wording by Zakir Naik, in spite of those differences, the Vedas are considered the most authentic of all sacred scriptures of Hinduism, the most sacred amongst all the sacred scriptures of Hinduism. Actually, authentic, yes, but it is not the most sacred. Nothing is most sacred in Hinduism. The only sacred thing in Hinduism is the self, the soul, which is the fragment of God. Vedas or any scripture is help. Whether you study from your teacher, from your textbook, from your school, from a coaching class, or from your parents, or from your friends, whichever way you study, whichever way you gain knowledge, you are supposed to pass examinations. And if you have passed examination, it doesn't matter from where you or how you studied. So, the Vedas, yes, they are the first scriptures of Hinduism, but it can't be said it is the most sacred. You can say the Vedas are the stepping stone to higher levels of Hinduism. So Zakir Naik is wrong when he says the Vedas are the most sacred. Most authentic? Okay, yes, because they have been revealed or they are believed to have been revealed directly from divinity to the mind of human beings. But most sacred? No. Nothing is more sacred, nothing is most sacred. You may not even have to read anything, any Vedas or any scripture. And even then you can be very successful in terms of the Hindu quest for the self. In Hinduism, if you are spiritually aroused enough, if you are spiritually developed enough, knowledge unfolds within you. Because ultimately, knowledge of the Vedas is already within you. You don't have to really read Vedas. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita, the recommended scripture for this age, for this phase of time, clearly says, don't be carried away by the flowery language of the Vedas. So you don't really need to even read Vedas. Vedas actually are a handbook for priestcraft, containing hymns, chants, mantras to appease hidden powers of nature, hidden powers in nature, to give us boons. They're not really meant for reading by ordinary people. We read as a matter of curiosity. But the purpose of the Vedas is not to teach us anything, but to invoke hidden powers in nature. Also, The Vedas have coded meanings. You can't understand the Vedas by just reading them. The meaning is coded. And everybody can't understand that. Only a few rishis, a few spiritually very developed people can understand. So the meaning of the Vedas is not the literal meaning, it is coded meaning, which you understand or which you realize from within you when you reach a certain level of spiritual development. Let's see what Zakir Naik has to say next.
If any other Hindu scriptures contradict the Vedas are supposed to be followed.
Zakir Naik does not know what the Vedas are. If this comment of his is any indication, he is considering the Vedas to be the Hindu equivalent of the Muslim Quran. It is not. Muslims believe that if there is a contradiction between the Quran and any other Islamic scripture, then the Quran has to be followed. Zakir Naik is applying this principle to the Vedas, but there is nothing in the Vedas to be followed. As I said, Vedas are a handbook for priestcraft. It is a book for the specialist to invoke hidden powers in nature so that they grant boons to make our life easy to live, to fulfill our desires. Just get rid of this idea that Vedas have to be followed. Nothing of the sort. If you have to follow someone, follow your guru. Your guru is your spiritual master, is your spiritual healer, your spiritual doctor. Follow your guru and follow your conscience. If you don't have a guru, follow your conscience and do yoga. Hinduism is an experiential religion. You experience it with passage of time. It's not a book-bound religion. There's not much to believe in Hinduism. There's more to realize, more to experience. So follow your guru, the guru will guide you. There's nothing in the Vedas to follow. Let's see what Zakir Naik says next.
The next in authority we have are the Upanishads.
The Upanishads are not next in authority. The Upanishads are the books which contain the knowledge which you need to achieve salvation from the birth and death cycle. The Vedas, as I said, are for people who need supernatural help to float through the material world. Spiritually developed people, highly developed people don't need the Vedas. They need Upanishads. Because Upanishads contain knowledge that helps you understand who you are. And once you understand who you are, then your salvation becomes easier. As I said, Bhagavad Gita categorically says, don't be carried away by the flowery language of the Vedas. That's as good as saying you can avoid the Vedas altogether. So, the Upanishads are not next in authority. First of all, there is no authority, and secondly, if you have reached a level of spiritual development or even material development where you don't have any further material desires, then Upanishads are the scriptures for you. Just ignore the Vedas. Upanishads are also called Vedanta. What's Vedanta? Ved-anta. Anta means end. End of the Vedas. Where the Vedas end, the Upanishads start. So Upanishads are in no way inferior to the Vedas. In fact, they are arguably superior. Now what Zakir Naik says next is basically again tutorial material. He talks about the number of Upanishads, etc. And they are basically facts which are very well known or which can be easily searched on the net. I would like to focus on something more material which is said about Ramayana and Mahabharata, the two epic dramas of ancient India. Let's hear what he says.
There are two epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The Ramayana deals with the story of Sri Rama.
There are some 300 versions of the Ramayana, and not all of them have the status of scripture. In Hinduism, the scriptural status is given to texts that invoke hidden powers in nature and hidden powers in you. There is one or two versions of the Ramayana that enjoyed the status of scripture. One of them is the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas. There could be one more version, I am told. The rest are narrations to make you interested in the story of Rama. But they don't have the scriptural status. The rest are edutainment. Education come entertainment. Let's see what Zakir Naik says next.
And the Mahabharata deals with the story, it's a feud, a fight between the cousins, the Pandavas and the Kauravas. It also deals with the story of Sri Krishna.
Mahabharata. He is saying Mahabharata is a scripture. Only two portions or two bits of Mahabharata are scriptures. One is the Bhagavad Gita, another is the Vishnu Sahasranam, the 1,000 names of Lord Vishnu. That's all. The rest of Mahabharata is drama. It is an epic drama intended to ensnare the common man into the Bhagavad Gita. You just throw a scripture at ordinary people, they won't read it. They find it boring. But you pack it up, you package it in a story, in a play, in a drama, and the ordinary reader of that drama bumps into the scripture and reads it. The Bhagavad Gita is the sole purpose of Mahabharata. The whole of Mahabharata is not a scripture. Is not a scripture, my friend. It's not a scripture. Zakir Naik does not know what he's talking about. Okay, then he talks about the Puranas. It's okay, the Puranas are not at all core scriptures. The Puranas are basically again edutainment products. Edutainment. To make people, ordinary people, interested in religion. So they ask questions. The intelligent mind, when he reads or hears the Puranas, questions come to his mind. And when he asks questions, the answers help him understand spirituality. Let's see what Zakir Naik says next.
Then we have the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is part of Mahabharata.
Oh my God, Zakir Naik has listed Bhagavad Gita after the Puranas. The Puranas are the least important scriptures. The Bhagavad Gita is a summary of the Upanishads. If you read Bhagavad Gita regularly, you don't need to read any other Hindu scripture. Bhagavad Gita is meant specifically for people of this age whose lifespan is low. They don't have time for detailed studies. So Bhagavad Gita is like a capsule. If you have understood the Bhagavad Gita, you have understood Hinduism. That's it. And Zakir Naik has listed Bhagavad Gita as the last scripture after the Puranas, which is surprising. Zakir Naik is betraying immense ignorance about Hindu scriptures. Immense. Let's see what Zakir Naik says next.
Then we have the Manusmriti and various others.
Manusmriti is not a scripture. Any damn literature produced in ancient India is not a scripture. Can I take the story of Layla and Majnu, the love story of Layla and Majnu, which transpired in Islamic Arabia, can I take it as a scripture? Manusmriti is law book. You may not agree with the law. Manu was the first man, according to Hindu belief. He was the first human being. What is remarkable about Manusmriti is that the first human being, according to Hindu belief, could write a book. Since he was a human being, he was the first human being, he conceived the need for a law book. What he wrote or what he conceived is not important, because that was a long time ago, the first human being. But the awareness of the need to have a law and ability to conceive a book, if not actually write a book at the time, to conceive a book and spread knowledge of that conception, that only shows the intellectual acumen of the first man on earth according to Hinduism. The point is that Manusmriti is not a scripture. Everything written or produced in ancient India is not a scripture. Let's see what he says next.
This was in brief regarding the sacred scriptures of Hinduism. But the most sacred, the most authentic amongst all the scriptures is the Veda. If anything contradicts the Vedas, we have to follow the Vedas.
He is again applying Islamic standard to Hinduism. There is no question, as I said, of anything contradicting the Vedas. The Vedas are a handbook for priestcraft, essentially. There is no question of contradicting it with any other scripture. Just as a book on biology cannot be contradicted by a book on English literature, similarly, the Vedas, a handbook of priestcraft, cannot be contradicted by any other scripture or any other book. So there is no question of contradiction of the Vedas. Zakir Naik again is applying Islamic standard to Hinduism, or the Quranic standard to the Vedas. He is wrong. They are two different products from two different cultures. Let's see what he says next.
Let's discuss the sacred scriptures of Islam.
Okay, now he will discuss the scriptures of Islam, which I will cover in my next video. I only hope that he applies the same argumentation on Islamic scripture that applied to Hindu scriptures. That is, empirical approach or historical approach, not the belief approach. Let's see how he handles or how he covers Islamic scriptures in my next video. If you are interested in such videos, in such topics, please subscribe to my channel and ask your friends too. Thank you.